Hello. By the time this podcast goes live, I will be approaching my 26th birthday. Woo! Birthdays are always a time of reflection for me. And I've come to love celebrating my birthday over the years because as I've matured and gotten older, I've learned to appreciate the fact that this is the youngest I'll ever be, and you only turn that age once. And aging is honestly a privilege. I welcome aging. I think aging is one of the coolest fucking things ever. And you know why? It's like another year, another opportunity to continually refine your taste and accumulate knowledge and experiences. And I don't know, it's just a privilege that I don't take for granted. Like, I think some of the best DJs in the world, for example, they're all old fuckers. They're the best in their craft and what they do. They've got the life experience, they've got the knowledge and taste that they have continually refined and built up over years and years and years. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive, I'm happy to be healthy, and it's a privilege that I really don't take for granted. There's a saying that's really stuck with me over the last couple years or so, and it's something along the lines of health is a crown that the healthy wear, but only the sick can see. Yeah, I think aging is so dope. Like, you get just like more opportunity and more time to, yeah, just accumulate your knowledge and experiences and refine your taste. And there's so many books to read and cultures to experience and places to travel to and people to love. And I just think like another year and another opportunity to do those things, like that's fucking awesome, dude. I fucking love it. So, you know the idea online that like once you hit 25, one day you wake up and it's kind of like, oh my God, my brain's fully developed. Like I don't have a smooth brain anymore. I can attest to that. That really resonates with me. You know, the prefrontal cortex, the region of your brain that's behind your forehead and is like responsible for decision making and directing your attention. The idea that it's like finally developed at 25, I completely agree. Based off my anecdotal experience, I know that to be true. And now that I'm on the tail end of 25, and I'll probably be 26 by the time this goes live, I don't know, I feel like I'm a whole lot more just stable and really comfortable with who I am. I've had existential crises on a quarterly basis ever since I was 14, dude. I'm not even joking. I swear to God, when I was 14, I had my first existential crisis. That was a wild time. You know, whereas now I feel like I've gone through so many existential crises that I really welcome the chance to like revisit and reevaluate my life priorities and the big questions, you know? And I've really learned to appreciate riding the wave of emotion and the evolution of the self. And I just feel, yeah, really comfortable with who I am and where I've come from and my place in the world and what gifts I'm able to contribute to it. And I don't know, that's a really beautiful, deep seated feeling. And I hope other people can resonate with that or experience that, particularly if you're like in your early 20s and you're kind of like, what the fuck am I doing? As an aside as well, before we get into the lessons I've learned, I want to share this anecdote from this experience the other day I had. I met a 19-year-old. I didn't know he was 19 before talking to him, okay? I was like chatting to him a little bit and it really made me, it just gave me so much perspective and it really made me appreciate the wisdom and life experience that I have and that I would not trade youth for the life lessons that I've learned, man. Never in a million fucking years. Like, I would rather be in my mid 20s than be 19 or 20 or 21 again. Without a fucking doubt. And like to give you context to what like made me arrive to this conclusion, right? He was trying to impress me by bragging about the books that he's read, and it was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson and 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It really made me laugh. Like, not to be condescending to him or to anyone else who reads like self-help books, but I don't know, it was just kind of like, you sweet summer's child. Like, you, I don't know, it just made me realize that he had very little life experience and very little taste, and a lot of his worldview was obtained vicariously by regurgitating whatever shit that he'd read on Reddit that day, or books that he's read that other people have told him to read. Anyways, let's get into 25 lessons I've learned at 25. And I feel as though the last year has been a real whirlwind year. And one quote that really resonates with me is that some years are for asking questions and other years are for finding the answers. And I feel as though this last 12 months, that was a whirlwind ride in finding the answers. So, number one, when you don't know what to do, pay close attention to your body because it doesn't know how to lie to you, and pay very little attention to your mind because it is lying to you all the time. Developing bodily awareness is something that I've really had to dedicate a lot of time to consciously over the last 12 months or so, because I didn't realize how much I had numbed myself and distracted myself from experiencing negative emotions. We tend to think mind over matter, whatever, but the body actually holds a lot of wisdom. There's more and more research in the West that is coming to confirm a lot of the wisdom that has been known in the East for centuries. And that is like, the body keeps the score and the body stores emotions, right? When you don't know what to do, like, you should sit with that question. You should meditate on that question for a few minutes and try and clear your mind. Turn the question over in your mind. Pay attention to what feelings arise in your body. When I moved to the Netherlands, I did not really pay, I was very much in the mind over matter, didn't really pay a lot of attention to my body, pushed through a lot of really, like, I had this deep sense of dread when I moved to the Netherlands. Like, I had this gut feeling like something just didn't feel right. And I just kind of rationalized it as, oh no, this is just the initial period of discomfort that comes when you move to a new city or a new place. Like, in 3 months, it will die down. And yeah, in 3 months, it kind of wasn't as acute, but I'd also kind of learned to like live with that. And it was fucked. Like, I was experiencing insomnia. My resting heart rate was 70 BPM when previously it was in the like mid 40s. Pay attention to your heart rate. Pay attention to your sleeping patterns. Pay attention to your energy and vitality. Number 2, don't tie your identity to a place, a job, a person. Instead, try and base your identity off a set of values, a purpose, a mission. That way, when one of the former things change, which they will inevitably, such as where you live, what you do for a living, and the person you're dating, that way, when they do change, you don't have a full-blown identity crisis as a result of circumstance. And that kind of ties into my next lesson that I've learned, which is number 3, diversify your fulfillment, whether that's friends, hobbies, or projects. You know, diversification is a concept that's constantly spoken about, particularly in the financial services industry, and it's something that I feel like can be very applicable to your general life approach. When you diversify your investments, you're also diversifying your risk. If one of those investments turns out to be fucking horrific, the impact of that negative investment doesn't bring down your broader portfolio too much. And the same can apply to your friends. Like, if you just have like 3 friends, whilst I am a staunch believer of quality over quantity, anything happens with those 3 friendships, like, you will be fucking devastated. Same with your fulfillment from work. Like, if you derive all your fulfillment from your job, for example, what happens if you get made redundant? I learned this lesson the hard way, dude. I got made redundant. I based so much of my identity and so much of my fulfillment was derived from my productivity and my work performance and like my job title, and that was just, it was a very valuable lesson, and I learned it the hard way. Number 4, the most seductive beliefs are the most ancient ones. The ancient beliefs about ourselves, our future, what we're capable of, they're all also the hardest to really challenge. We are not fixed beings. You can reinvent yourself at any time, and it all begins and ends with you. You can literally change your mind at any time, no matter your age. Number 5, if you're worried about time going by too fast, do 2 things. First, get off your phone. It divorces you from your senses and truncates your experience of time. And second, do hard things. It dilates your experience of time. Life is fleeting. Don't let your experience of your existence be that of a passenger. Number 6, you are not an endless self-development project. You are a human being. Life requires this balance of being versus becoming. You can't tunnel your vision solely into the future and who you're becoming because you're throwing away the substance of the moment for its shadow. Number 7, cycle syncing. Particularly for people with fallopian tubes, paying attention to my cycle was a game changer. Like, this was honestly a revelation. I'd berate myself for like struggling to go for a long run during my luteal phase. And for those of you who aren't familiar, luteal phase is like the week before a woman gets her period, where progesterone is really high and estrogen is really low. You know, I'd fucking berate myself for not going for a long run. And as soon as I paid more attention to the hormonal shifts in my body and adapted my training around that, instead of trying to train to the male 24-hour hormonal cycle, it changed the game for me. And if you are a woman and you have ADHD, it's even more important to pay attention to the hormonal fluctuations during your cycle. Hormonal fluctuations during your cycle can worsen your ADHD symptoms. So estrogen, which steadily increases after your period for the 2 weeks following your period, while progesterone is low, that promotes the release of feel-good neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Dopamine, which is already decreased in people with ADHD, right? After the luteal phase leading into the menstruation phase, progesterone diminishes the beneficial effects of estrogen on the brain, thereby affecting dopamine and serotonin. So PMS, or premenstrual syndrome, affects women with ADHD much more than neurotypical women. And this, again, revelatory for me. Like, why did my psychiatrist, who was also a woman, not tell me about this when she diagnosed me with ADHD, bro? A heads up would have been nice. Number 8, no, you don't have amazing chemistry with that person. Their hot and cold behavior mimics the unpredictable, turbulent nature of your childhood, and you're drawn to this person because it feels familiar and exciting. Now, whenever I have that white hot chemistry with someone, I've learned to recognize that as a warning sign. Number 9, judge a person by their actions, especially how they act when they're drunk and how they act towards wait staff or people they perceive as lesser than. Whenever someone is rude to wait staff, that is like one of the most unattractive things ever. Also, people who haven't done a customer service facing role, that's like a red flag to me. What do you mean you're 25 in your mid-20s and you've never worked retail or you've never worked in a bar? Like, that is just, I feel like you're losing out on some fundamental social skills and the ability to refine empathy. Number 10, you attract what you use to impress. If you present yourself as wealthy, you'll attract people who value you for that trait. When we present ourselves and put our best foot forward, particularly online, we signal the dynamic we want for ourselves and what we think we deserve. Number 11, life's short, beauty's fleeting, have fun and post the thirst trap for the memes, because one day you're gonna have saggy tits down to your knees, okay? Enjoy the moment. Number 12, never trust the first 10 minutes of a run. And if you're going for a long run, I never trust like the first 5 kilometers because the first 10 minutes of the run is just like fucking horrific. You're like wheezing, dragging your feet along. You haven't found the rhythm yet. You're not in a rhythm of your breathing and your movement. It's just ass, okay? You've really got to learn to disregard whatever your mind is thinking during the first 10 minutes of a run, because it will convince you that you're a horrific runner and that you should just go lie down and you shouldn't exercise. Number 13, intention is everything. Be more intentional with your energy, guys. Number 14, embody your values rather than talk about them. Instead of telling people what you value, show them. Number 15, those fuckers are right. The real work lies in what we're avoiding. You know what you need to do, so do it. Number 16, it only feels right if it feels terrifyingly vulnerable and ambitious. Number 17, Indecision is a decision. Lack of closure is still closure. Only in a select few instances do you ever need closure from a situation. Particularly when it comes to romance, lack of closure, that is still closure to me. I never really fathom why some of my girlfriends are oh, it would be good to catch up. I just feel as though I need closure from the situation. It's like, what more do you need? Like, why? What answer are you hoping to get from this situation? Like, people show you how they feel about you. I'm not fully subscribing to the idea of if he wanted to, he would, but you can tell how someone feels about you by their actions towards you. Number 18, you don't need self-love, you need to build self-compassion. I've always found the idea of self-care and self-love kind of corny, especially coming as someone who I really used to hate myself. And I know that sounds quite hectic, but I honestly had a really poor relationship with myself. And our relationship with ourselves is the longest relationship we'll ever have. So it makes sense to not make it a toxic one. To build self-compassion, you need to identify what areas of your life you are particularly hard on yourself for, whether that's fitness or a past mistake. That's often the place you need to give yourself the most compassion and grace. It's okay to make mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. Number 19, I know this borders on generic self-help advice, but it's generic because it's true. Discipline is honestly the highest form of devotion. Do the thing not because you have to, but because you get to. Do the thing because you deserve to fully show up for yourself in this lifetime. Do the thing because the pain of growth is infinitesimal in comparison to the pain of unrealized potential. Number 20, the mind is its own place and it can make hell out of heaven or heaven out of hell. By conventional societal standards, when I was at my peak, i.e. I was the skinniest I'd ever been, richest I'd ever been, doing public speaking gigs at conferences and shit like that, I was also fucking miserable. To be completely honest. And similarly, one of the best people I met whilst living in the Netherlands, I was volunteering at this homeless shelter and there was this guy that would regularly come in and his name was Shagid. And he just had the most infectious, magnetic energy, always had a smile on his face. We bonded over nature and he told me all about how he spent several months riding his bike down to the south of France with his brother, telling me all about these beautiful people that he met quite serendipitously. And he just found joy in the little things. He was going through his camera roll and showing me, and it was he'd take photos of this majestic rock face or this photo of this albino snail. And he was like, isn't this the coolest thing ever? I'm like, yeah, dude, I fucking love your energy. And I don't know, his spirit just serves it as a reminder that the mind is its own place and it can make hell out of heaven or heaven out of hell. Number 21, instant gratification all the time is boring. Number 22, my version of Occam's razor is the belief that 99% of the time people don't have malicious intentions. In the presence of questionable behavior, I assume that the person is doing the best they can with the tools they have. And this is really hard to do in the moment, especially when you're emotional or reactive about something, but it's often true. Number 23, communicate your feelings and boundaries. People pleasing by not communicating your needs and trying to keep the peace is just futile. It leads to relationship entropy, bro. Number 24, the power of the mind is unrivaled. See also placebo effect. Physical endurance is governed by mental endurance. If you don't believe you can do something, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why the idea that I'm not a runner is such a toxic kind of belief. It just shows that our core beliefs really shape us and what we think we're capable of and what we end up achieving. Number 25, regularly audit your influence, that whether that's your friends, news, books, your social media algorithms. I think it's very important to be conscious of the information that you're consuming and be aware that everyone has their blind spots and biases. Discern and glean what you can and entertain certain worldviews, but don't just take everything for gospel. Anyways, that's what I've learned. This is my 25 lessons I've learned at 25. Thank you so much for your time and energy. I really appreciate it. I'd be curious to learn what lessons you have learned in your lifetime. I always love asking people, particularly who are like older than me. I love asking them, like, is there any wisdom you can share with me? And I'd really love to hear your wisdom and your thoughts. So join the conversation over at Futurist Frequency on Instagram. I'll see you next week in my next podcast episode. Bye.